Hey, it's Aaron, and today we're going to talk a little bit about how people won't just start hoarding all of the goods if they're all given away for free. That's pretty much the long and short of it. I've talked about this several times in the past, but it's cool to talk about it in different ways, and over time I come up with, hopefully, better arguments for those sorts of things. So without any further ado, let's get started. Okay, so this question actually comes up all of the time, and it came up recently in my last video that I did about police. Specifically, people were wondering if all of the goods were given away for free in something like a free store or a gift economy, wouldn't that just lead to everybody who wants some sort of good to just go into the store and buy up all of it? Like, is somebody just going to go in and buy all the pickles or all the toilet paper because they can? And I guess under this situation, it wouldn't be buying, it would be acquiring. It's hard to not use capitalist terms when we're talking about these sorts of things. So sometimes when I talk about this, I use buying and acquiring interchangeably, but you understand what I'm trying to say. So how is it exactly that we wouldn't just have everyone run in and start hoarding all of the goods? And basically it boils down to three main points. I like to do things in threes. It has to do with proper education, contracts, and profit motive. Now, first we're going to talk about proper education. Now, when I'm talking about education in relation to food and acquiring goods and that sort of thing, I want, in my dream society, for us to prioritize aspects of survival, such as food, shelter, that sort of thing. So I think that it's very important that people learn as much as they can about how to be self-reliant. And that doesn't mean just learning about the food, but also learning how to prepare the food and the science behind it. All of these things are really important so you have a full understanding of how those nutrients are actually absorbed into your body and how you actually use them throughout the day. And if we teach people not just from a very young age, but throughout their entire lives about how to be healthy and how to eat properly, then it actually helps people make the proper decisions. And that also has to do with not constantly being propagandized to from fast food companies telling you to go eat all of these fast food items regardless of how healthy they are. And the other aspect that actually really helps people make the right decisions is giving them access to have the proper resources they need to make the proper food at home. Because if we're always busy and we don't have any money to go out and actually buy the groceries that we need, teaching kids that they need to eat healthy isn't going to mean a whole hell of a lot if they have to have McDonald's for dinner every night. So giving people the proper resources at home, along with education and along with dismantling this propaganda system, all has to do with educating the populace more on what decisions to make and how they can make them more adequately and more economically sound to their situation. Now, obviously, proper health education and that sort of thing in relation to food isn't necessarily going to stop people from hoarding goods, but we can teach that as well if we teach people about society and how things ought to be run. In a society, we want to have everybody understand that you give what you can and you take what you need. You don't take more than what you need, you just take as much as you need. That way, everybody gets to benefit. And that's not something that we're really taught in schools right now because it's not the way the system runs. If you have the most money, you can buy the most goods. It doesn't really matter. Really, the only other time in your lives, other than when you're a tiny child in daycare, when you're being taught that you have to actually share within the resources in a finite space, is basically when you're growing up in your parents' house and you have to all share in the food. If you start eating all of the food, you go to the pantry, you eat an entire box of fucking cookies, your mom is gonna lose her shit at you because you just ate the entire family's worth of cookies. But when it comes to real life, we don't really have those limitations put in place because you can just simply buy all of the things that you could ever want if you had the most money. If you have more money, you can buy more cars, you can buy more property, you can buy more houses, you can buy more of whatever you want. There are no limitations, there are no rules as long as you have the most money. And that ends up leading to a situation where people like a single mother of four, doesn't get as many resources, the resources that she needs to provide to that family, as one rich bachelor that's able to buy all of the resources that they want. So obviously doing things like providing people the amount of food and resources that they need in an equitable fashion, in a way that actually makes sense, would be the highest priority. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but first I'm going to talk about basically the way that we put limitations on the amount of goods that you actually can get from stores. Because yes, even under anarchism, there can be certain ways to put limitations on what we do. And the main thing that I usually talk about when talking about these sorts of things is a contract system. Now, some people agree with the contract system, some people don't. As far as I'm concerned, it works as basically a way of introducing new people to the idea of working for free, when really you're not working for free. You're working within a society to produce goods and services so that you all benefit. But for sake of newcomers to that society, you can have something known as a contract system that makes it feel as though you're not just putting your labor out there for nothing. And basically the way that would work is that you outline in the contract what you can provide to the society or to the community, and the community outlines what they can provide to you. So if you are a painter or a plumber or a musician, then you donate a certain amount of your services to the community so that they can all benefit from your services, and from that community you can get out all of the things that they can provide. So if you need bread or milk or bricks or whatever it is, then you can go to the community store and you can acquire those goods because other people within the community are working to build those things as well. But here's the catch. If you break that contract, or if the community breaks the contract with you, then you can dispute that contract, and whatever party is held liable in breaking that contract would obviously be punished in some sort of way. Now, if you personally break the contract within your community and you're taking way more than you actually need, and that's a stipulation in that community that people would basically have a problem with, then you would probably go to some sort of council of elected representatives, professionals in the law, that would basically determine whether or not you broke that law and how you would be punished. And if you had some sort of problem with that system and with their ruling, then you could take that complaint to the broader community and do basically the same thing again on a larger scale. I'm not saying that's how every single anarchist society would be basically structured, but I'm just saying that is one method of using a legal system that's from the bottom up rather than the top down, to determine whether or not somebody is breaking the rules within that society. And one thing that I didn't get to talk about when I was talking about my police video yesterday is that a lot of things, a lot of rules can be enforced simply by conversations with your neighbors, right? If somebody has some sort of conflict between an individual and another individual, you can solve that conflict between each other. Maybe have a mediary in between you to help settle the grievance, but outside of that, most things can actually be handled on a one-to-one basis. But if they can't, then you take it to the broader community and you handle things that way. And if that doesn't solve it, then you take it to the broader community, and so forth and so on. So there are lots of checks and balances. There are lots of rules and structure within anarchism. And finally, the most important thing, I believe, is changing the way we view the profit motive. Now, right now, the way we view all of everything within society is that we need to increase profits quarterly. We need to make sure that we're making the most amount of money in the least amount of time, and it doesn't matter what that entails. If that means that we have to cut costs, cut labor, cut resources, cut whatever it is, so capitalists can make the most amount of money with the least amount of investment. But if we change the profit motive, if we no longer put all of our resources towards making the most money, and we put it towards something that actually helps people, like improving humanity, then we won't actually have a lot of the problems that we see with people right now. Currently, supermarkets throw away 43 billion tons of food every single year. That's outrageous. That's unconscionable. It's unimaginable how much food that actually is. And they do that because they need to make sure that all of their shelves stay stocked and huge and massive and make it look as though there is this incredible abundance. But that food doesn't last forever, and eventually it needs to be thrown away. And that's where 43 billion tons of food ends up going. Directly into the garbage. And even before any of that food makes it to the grocery store, it's already being scrutinized and thrown away and tossed away because it doesn't fit beauty standards. You have to make sure that the fruit is all perfectly symmetrical and round, or else people won't want to buy it in a grocery store. Well, if we're actually doing things properly and thinking about how we can use the resources in a way that doesn't destroy the planet, and as a benefit, make sure that we don't have to work any harder than we absolutely have to, then we just do something like distributing those goods to the people who need them the most, from each according to their ability, to each according to their need. And this part is the to each according to their need part. Like I was saying a moment ago, a single mother of a family of 4 is going to have more need than an individual bachelor, and therefore they would get more goods. And that doesn't mean that people wouldn't get all of the things that they wanted or needed. It's not like you would necessarily need to ration things all of the time. Sure, in the middle of a pandemic when you have limited resources and nobody actually able to go out and produce goods, then you might need to ration things to a certain extent, but in a normal, everyday situation, giving people the goods that they need at no price at all would actually produce far less waste, and we would need to produce far less items because we're only giving people the amount of things that they actually need. So then we only produce the amount of things that we actually need, instead of producing an incredible abundance and then throwing it all away at the end of the day. And an added benefit to all of this is that if you had the option of choosing between any of the goods in a store, whether it be the lowest quality goods or the highest quality goods, I'm going to assume that you'd usually choose the highest quality goods, right? Because they're going to taste the best, they're going to last the longest, and they're going to be the best possible product for you. Now, keeping that in mind, that would mean that we would stop producing lesser quality items. And if we stop producing lesser quality items and focus primarily on producing the highest quality items, then manufactured obsolescence would be a thing of the past. No longer would you buy a cell phone and in 6 months it breaks and you'd have to go and buy another one, because we don't want to constantly have to make new cell phones, because people have to go out and actually physically build them. And the more time we're spending building cell phones, the less time we have to spend with our families. So obviously we want to build fewer cell phones, so we would make them better. And therefore, if we made all of the goods better and we only wanted to acquire the best possible goods, then the goods that we would be acquiring would be of the highest possible quality and last the longest. So that would mean that every single one of us would have our standard of living increased exponentially, because we actually get to have all of these amazing things that our community can provide. These are not new ideas. The only thing that I'm doing differently here is I am applying these old ideas to our modern day society. And in doing so, it actually makes things a whole lot easier, because comparing right now to the 1800s is like comparing apples and fucking oranges. Right now, we have a superabundance of all of the resources we could ever need. We didn't have that in the 1800s, and now we do. And we have the capacity to be able to distribute all of the things in any way that we possibly wanted to. So it's not like any of these ideas are unfeasible. It's actually more than feasible. It's the way we have to change the world right now, or else we're not going to have a system that functions properly. So anyway, that's all I have to say. My name is Aaron. Check out all the links in the description box below. Hit the little bell button, because they ain't going to tell you when I'm putting out a new video, and they're unsubscribing people every day, so make sure you check to see if you're still subscribed. Thank you very much for watching, and have a nice day.